reflection of who we are as people. When we start a business, it's usually ourselves and a co-founder perhaps. Usually businesses don't hop into having 50 employees. They start them small. But core values are there, one way or the other, whether they be explicit or more than likely implicit or implied. When we began trying to be explicit about what those core values were, really reflecting on who we were as people and why Jason and I started this company and what we are trying to do for both consumers and for our team members, it allowed us to be able to get this stuff written, to be codified and get it on the walls.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? The foundational elements of your business matter more now than ever before. Now we're going through some very uncertainty inside financial markets, inside of job reports, inside of probably strategy across your company. What worked 2 months ago may not work today. And you're probably concerned about that. But the foundational elements of your business are the most important piece. When I say foundational elements, I mean the mission, vision, and values. The values is something that people kind of do a checkbox and say, we've got values. That's good enough. Let's just move on. Let's get the work done. I understand that thinking, but I urge you to slow down for a moment and think about leading with core values. What does real leadership around your core values look like? Well, you're clear about what you stand for. You're clear about the onboarding process, who you hire, all because of the core values. You live them day in and day out, and you put a lot of focus and attention on those core values, and your people get it. Today's special guest is the co-founder of The Credit Pros. They're a 6-time Inc. Company, 6 consecutive times. They, recently their growth rates have slowed down because of they're so big, they're growing so fast, but they know the importance of those core values. That co-founder is Damon Decrescenzo. We will talk about Damon inside this episode today. One of the things I love most about this interview was some of the details he shares around how they live it, how they make it a part of who they are every day. Now, before you go, if you haven't already seen the training around who you are as a leader and how you're really pushing forward and building a team of A players, make sure you go to genehammett.com/training. That training will give you free access to the 3 biggest mistakes that you're making, help you overcome them, and actually give you some guidance to what to do next. Inside that training, absolutely free, will give you the roadmap as a leader of what to do next to keep your company growing consistently. Just go to genehammett.com/training. Now here's the interview with Damon. Damon, how are you?
Gene, wonderful. Thank you very much for having me today.
Well, I know it's been hard to track you down to be able to get you on the show. You have had tremendous growth with your company, and I've already shared some of those details, but I'd love for you to tell us about the Credit Shop, or the Credit Pros, sorry.
All right. So the Credit Pros was founded 11 years ago, 2009, by my partner Jason and I. Jason's a whip-smart lawyer. I'm not a whip-smart lawyer. They wouldn't allow me into the law school even if I applied. But we began our company to be able to help people improve their credit scores so that they may be able to change their life. And in the process, really wound up finding traction in being able to expand on a national footprint and being able to find a way to serve tens of thousands of people all throughout the United States, really make a difference in their life. And while we did that, we built an awesome company. It's been a blessing.
So you're in an industry that has a little bit of a stigma around it. There's a lot of people trying to get you to pay money, but from what my understanding is, they don't really do much. How have you overcome that?
Well, that's a very good question. And like all industries, there are bad actors. I got a bad haircut the other day, but it doesn't make all barbers bad. The fact of it is, people need help. And we believe in doing right by the consumer in full transparency. The challenge with that sometimes is these bad actors happen to get more press than the companies that are really going out of their way to be able to serve the user. Also importantly, in the work that we do with consumer credit, so much is based on personal responsibility of the user. so much is based on what they do, what actions they take, the self-empowerment they feel to be able to take control of their life. And if a consumer is not fully engaged, if a consumer doesn't take full responsibility for their own actions, well, then sometimes there isn't much that I can do or they can do, or anyone else for that matter, save a good priest and a shrink.
Well, I appreciate you giving us some ideas about what your business is. You've been through growth over the years. You said six consecutive times on the Inc. list. Walk us through a couple of the inflection points that you had to navigate as a leader through that growth.
Well, it's changed over the years as the organization has changed. Today, we have about 140 people that work in the organization, and the vast majority of them don't work in the United States, or the ones that do work in the United States, not in a central office. That in and of itself, that paradigm shift to working with people remotely was a challenge. But in the beginning of our growth, it was how do we keep pace with growth? How do we meet market demand and still hold ourselves together while we were a smaller company? And certainly as we've grown, it's become more messaging. How do we keep a consistent message from the top of the organization, which in my case is our leadership team, all the way through the people that are working boots on the ground to be able to serve our consumers? It's challenging when we have 3 different levels of management, in some cases 4, to be able to keep that message conveyed. And we leverage now technology by way of making mistakes in the past and learning from them. Leveraging technology, but more importantly, leveraging our core values, leveraging what makes us unique as pros together as a company to be able to maintain consistency.
Damon, I know we had talked about some of the key factors and the foundational elements that have made your company successful. You had thought that values were a critical element. So why do you think values are so important to an organization?
If I think back through the iteration process of our development of core values, it was when we started our company, core values exist one way or the other. They are a reflection of who we are as people. When we start a business, it's usually ourselves and a co-founder, perhaps. Usually businesses don't hop into having 50 employees. They start from small. But core values are there one way or the other, whether they be explicit or more than likely implicit. They're implied. When we began trying to be explicit about what those core values were, really reflecting on who we were as people, why Jason and I started this company, and what we are trying to do for both consumers and for our team members, it allowed us to be able to get this stuff written, to be codified, and get it on the walls. What we found is the benefit of this is that it allowed us to be able to speak a common language, to be able to hire, train, fire to these core values. And that did not happen right away. It did because it felt like a shirt that's perhaps didn't fit well. It was too tight. When we go from an organization that had no defined core values, and then a team comes from on high with the tablets and says, "Here, I bequeath the core values," and it's unless it's really well adopted by the team, unless it really rings true by the people that have to live it every day, it's just words. Whether it's on the wall, whether they're getting bonus because of it, if they don't feel it to be true, or if there is some friction between what they see and what they hear, then really the core values don't make a difference. And one of the important things about that is that when we started the core value process with 11 core values, we've since whittled it down to 6. And I think we talked about it earlier. There are a few of our core values that are negotiables. We're passionate about what we do, as an example. And then there are some core values that are non-negotiables, like we do the right thing, even when no one's watching. And by way of non-negotiable core values, it's really allowed us to be able to have a baseline of what is right and wrong, of what decisions should be made. The easy example is making a determination as to whether or not someone is the right fit for our organization based on an action that they've taken. Does that action meet our baseline of core value? Did they respect our clients, as an example? Or another one of our non-negotiables, did they respect our clients? If one of our team members, one of our pros, crosses that line, as far as we're concerned, that's our baseline of hiring, training, and firing. They're not a good part for our organization. We're going to help them find a seat in another bus on another organization. But through that iterative process, it's really served us well. And the reduction of it to our most basic core values of 6 has really served us well as well. Not having too many and not having it be too verbose has been helpful.
Hold on for a second. Did you hear what Damon just said? Values are a reflection of who we are. That it happens as an organization, but also happens at an individual level. One of the things I've done inside my business is work with leaders to actually define their own personal values to figure out who they are. It's some of the best work I've ever done because it is so fundamental to your transformation, your growth as a leader. Do you know who you need to be the leader that your team craves? If you can answer that question, you know your core values. If you can't, you probably don't. Back to the interview with Damon. I think a lot of people know that it has to go beyond the word on the wall. And in fact, what does that mean in a remote world? But what have you learned that makes you put the core values in the day-to-day? Like maybe it's a ritual or maybe it's something you guys do in sharing stories. How do you do that?
So there are a lot of different ways that we do it. So as a leader, and again, this came through iteration. It came through me personally making mistakes in not repeating these core values or what's important to me personally by way of the organization then as frequently as I should. Steps that we've taken, and this began a few years ago and has continued well past what I have the capacity to do now, has really been taken on by the team, is in every conversation, particularly those that are with subordinates, review with a subordinate or disciplinary action, or again, hire, training, and firing, bringing it back to a core value or more than likely multiple core values. Repeating them ad nauseum to the point where you sound like a weirdo. Really, it sounds ridiculous or cultish or whatever you'd like to call it. We find that really that is the most reliable way to let people know that this is really truly what we mean. In our organization, we're pretty good at strategic planning. We have our BHAG, our 10-year goal. We're in the middle of a 3-year plan, breaks it down to a year. And then our quarterlies and our monthlies. We have our all hands monthly meetings, which is interesting on Teams. Microsoft Teams is what we use to be able to do that. And then weekly goals, daily stand-ups, etc. All of them contain, in one way or another, a reference to, either directly or indirectly, and more likely directly, a core value. In our monthly all hands meetings, we have a contest. Who can spit out our core values as quickly as they can? It used to be they get lunch with the leadership team. Now they get some other measure of gratitude and recognition because they're more than likely not working somewhere close to us. But it is something that has been intentional. And by way of that, we've really found success there.
I really love the detail that you've put into this. I mean, you went through, some high level stuff and 10-year kind of focus and 3-year strategies and all the way down to the day-to-day and how you recognize. What mistakes have you learned around this really focus on core values that you've had to correct over the years? I know you've kind of highlighted a few, but I want to make sure that we put a spotlight on it.
Yeah, okay. Here's a big one. So, and again, this is my personal mistake. When the organization was a younger organization, we were smaller. And when we were really starting to just understand the importance of what core values meant, I made the decision to keep on our top salesperson in the organization, who we came to find out was not doing things completely ethically. One of our core values, again, is we respect our clients. And we do the right thing when nobody's watching. So those 2 core values were violated, but because of the fact that this was our top salesperson and because of the fact that, frankly speaking, I made a mistake and was looking at money instead of culture. I allowed that person to stay on. What happened was the rest of the organization knew that there was some breach of trust and that I had made the decision to violate my own standards by keeping that. And I lost the confidence of the team as it relates specifically to the integrity of those core values. Having learned that lesson in the past, we've more than once had to lay off or move key people in our organization, including at another point in time, our top salesperson in the organization. And in every instance where we made that decision to do that, while painful in the short term, make no mistake, the impact, the positive impact with respect to the rest of the organization was near immediate and definitely long term.
One of the things I want to mention here is this story that Damon just shared about the top salesperson. This is something that happens a lot. You've got to look at the numbers of those people with a little bit of a filter. You got to make sure that they're actually doing the right things. You're actually living the values, because even though you have someone who is producing tremendous amount of results, they could be toxic to the organization. Your job as a leader is to make those hard calls, make the decisions to coach them up or coach them out. I will just leave it right there for you to think about those people that really are great performers, but they aren't really adhering to the standards that which you really expect of them, and you want others to be more like. That being said, back to the interview. Powerful story. I will admit this is not the first time someone has said that their biggest mistakes, or not, maybe not biggest, but one of their core mistakes that they made was choosing a high performer over the culture. And when they corrected that, they saw just tremendous results behind it. Anything else that you would add, like, what you learned about yourself through that journey?
Yeah, that whether I like it or not, all eyes are constantly on the leader, and every decision, or in some cases indecision, is interpreted. And it was important to me too, because that interpretation wasn't in many ways in line with what my thought process was. But the people that interpreted my decisions, or in this case, indecision, made their own determinations as to my why. And some got it right and some didn't get it right. What I learned is that being a leader requires over disclosure, requires explaining until we have to explain again, and then explaining some more, so that the message is clearly communicated and my actions are consistent with what my messaging is.
Well, I know we've all been through that. Hopefully you only have to go through this once or twice to really realize that those short-term decisions really have to be addressed for the good of the greater company and the clients and the overall success of the company. Damon, your journey of leadership has probably been one of many ups and downs. I'm kind of curious, how do core values fit into you developing the next class of leaders in your organization?
This has been really great for us. So I have been blessed to, and tons of people say it, but for me, it's absolutely true. Have a team of people that are around me, my leadership team, that really rocks. And they rock because they understand very well. They live and breathe the core values. They live and breathe our company's mission, our company's purpose, which is to build an awesome company that changes lives. An important part there too is so they understand that the reason we founded this company is to build an awesome company that changes lives. The reason that Jason and I founded the company has nothing to do with credit. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with people. All it has to do with building an awesome company that changes lives. And every decision that they make is in one way or another in line with that. That's been a learning curve for me as well. I'm sure that many of the leaders you have on your podcast have the same problem that I do, that letting go of the reins is a really, really, really big challenge. And it has been a really big challenge. But when we began seeing the productivity of the team, and when I personally began letting go of the reins, it was amazing. One of the ways that we indoctrinate, though, the people under those people is by really clearly defined SOPs and platforms to be able to get people trained in a consistent, repetitive way, so we're not recreating the message. That really has been critical for us, to be able to get people trained, starting very broadly. As an example, we use a learning management tool that is video content with some testing, and every person, regardless of what role they may fill in the organization, has to start there. It starts with who we are and what we do and why we do it. It's video content that we've edited and is the same for every single person. It goes through our core values before it goes into what we do. And this way we know that if every person who's onboarded, regardless of role, regardless of responsibility, has that same baseline of content that they've absorbed, that they understand foundationally, it allows us to be able to continue to build on it. We're all speaking a common language without having to retrain people individually.
If you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up, and continue your journey of evolving as a leader. I remember once I had Horst Schulze on the show before. He wrote a book, and Horst Schulze is the co-founder of Ritz-Carlton. And he talked about this exact thing, that most people miss that opportunity to create that onboarding experience that puts everybody on the same page, and really should be a day, possibly even 2 days long experience of not just getting your laptop and your phone extensions and all that stuff, but truly, who are we? What do we stand for? What are our values? How are we going to live these values? And that becomes, that real strong foundation. It sounds like you've learned that probably through trial and error.
Yeah, we had to leverage technology to do it too. And one of the issues is, as we're a fast growth company, we're hiring people are being onboarded. When that process is being done, that onboarding process by human, as it used to be for the however many thousands of years humans have worked, it's usually knee to knee, one-to-one, or one-to-many. The problem is the words that are used perhaps could be different in every one of those classes, if you will, every one of those onboarding experiences. Whether it be, the disposition of the trainer could be different from day to day. And without that basic continuity, we find that there is some ebbs and flows to the understanding of what people have about our organization. When we began leveraging technology effectively to be able to get those people indoctrinated into who it is that we are as a company, we found it a lot easier to build upon.
So I really appreciate this conversation about core values and the importance of that, how you actually live them, and really walking us through your journey, some of those mistakes. So thanks for being here, Damon.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Gene.
What an amazing conversation around values. Are you leading with core values? Are you being intentional about this day in and day out? Are you developing your leaders with those core values in mind? The reason why I harp on this so much is because it's one of the most critical factors that you can actually control. You can actually shape this. You can build routine. You can really make it a part of who you are as an organization, and it becomes integral to the growth of the company and the growth of every individual inside the company. I believe core values are one of the most important things that you can focus on, that you actually will get payoff many, many fold for the effort you put into it. When you think about your core values, I want you to also think about your own personal values as a leader. What really drives you? I find that leaders often don't really have the answer to this question. Who do you need to be the leader that your team craves? Who do you need to be? If you have that, great. If you don't, I'd love to get to know you. I help leaders that are in those defining moments of who they are as they continue to evolve to be the leader that their team craves. That would be great to have a conversation with you. Gene@genehammett.com, that's my email. Make sure you reach out. When you think about your job as a leader, it's not just to get the work done, it's to lead the people. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.